5, or not even top 5, but is Luca a top MVP candidate? Because obviously, you know, last season didn't go the way that the Lakers planned, and Luca is always in conversation for the MVP. So is this the year that he's going to break through and win the MVP? And then also something I've been thinking about is we know that the All-Star game needs some kind of change in order for, you know, I don't even know if competitiveness is the right word, but like a lot of people have been disappointed in the way that the All-Star game has gone recently, the lack of defense and stuff like that. And so I kind of have an idea that I think I'm going to suggest to you guys. So first, let's talk about the Luca thing. So I talked about this in a previous live stream where I was talking about, I'm pretty sure I was talking about MVP candidates, and I was saying I think Cade Cunningham has a great shot to, you know, win the MVP because Detroit obviously got better and you could tell that they're building something over there, and Cade is really, really, really good. Like, he is stepping up each and every year, you know. And now that he's healthy, he is able to show why he was the number 1 pick. So I only expect Cade to get better and better and better. And so because the East is also wide open, I don't see why, like going back to what I said in that live stream, I don't see why I don't see why Cade is not a top MVP candidate if his team, you know, ends up being like the 3rd seed in the East. And I was saying the same thing about Paolo Banchero. Those two, like, because although they both obviously have very good players on their team with them, they are like the star, you know, the superstar, the star, whatever you want to call them. For me, superstar, people have different opinions on what a superstar is. To me, a superstar is a very, very, very select few. So somebody that you may classify as a superstar, I may not. Like, I feel like that is, you know, classified as someone who is LeBron and Steph Curry and Kevin Durant, Giannis, you know, obviously Jokic, you know, I guess Shea, yeah, Shea too now. Obviously Shea not 4 years ago, but Shea now, yes. So like, I feel like it's a very small category of people. That's my personal opinion. There's no right or wrong answer, but I don't think like the top 15 players in the league, I don't know if 15 is the right number, so let me not even put a number on it. But like, just for hypothetical sake, I don't know if I would classify all top 15 players in the NBA as a superstar. I don't know where the limit, you know, I don't know where it cuts off. It's obviously different every single year with different players. I'm just saying, I know that has been a topic, which wasn't what I was trying to talk about today, but it just came to my mind, on what people determine is a superstar. And to me, it's a very, very select few. You know, like, I don't think a ton of people are superstars. I think they're stars and super talented players, and I don't think it's, you know, bad to be a star. Like, it's very hard to be a superstar. But with that being said, off topic, but I said the same thing for Cade and Paolo. They are the star of their team. And so I don't see why, if their team performs well, why they wouldn't be, you know, top MVP candidates. With that being said, though, going to Luca, again, every single year, going into the year, he is, I don't even know if he has been the favorite. I'm sure he's been the favorite in years past, but obviously, like last year, Jokic was probably the favorite, or Shea was, but like, he's always in the top 5 favorites for MVP before the season starts. And it's been like that, I guess, since his 2nd season. I don't know exactly when, but like, it seems like every year he is in the conversation for MVP before the season starts. And so because of all the chatter and the talk and the trades to the Lakers and everything that happened with this season, a lot of expectations are kind of on Luca to have a better year compared to what happened last year. And not to say that it's all his fault. I mean, he didn't ask to be traded and stuff like that, but like, there is just like a conversation about Luca being better next year. And so I said this also in that live stream when I was talking about MVP candidates, stuff like that. I was saying, I quickly passed over Luca, but I was like, if LeBron gets traded, I mean, that's a big altering factor into Luca potentially being the MVP, because or if LeBron gets bought out and he goes somewhere else, whatever. But if it's like kind of like Luca on the Mavericks again, where it's Luca and surrounded by a whole bunch of really good players, and obviously with Kyrie there, that's another star. But like prior to that, it was Luca and a whole bunch of really good players, but like no other like star or stuff like that. Not to diminish anybody's abilities or what they did on that team, but like there are levels to it. Being a good player, again, is not something that should be frowned upon. Like, I don't think you should look at a player because they're not a star and be like, well, they're not, good enough to be in the NBA. Like, I don't think that's fair either. But I'm just saying, like, there are levels. So anyway, so if it goes to a situation, again, where it's kind of like the Mavericks, where it's Luca's team, he's clearly the number one option, it goes and comes and goes with Luca, right? If LeBron is not there and Luca carries the Lakers to a top 3 seed in the West, which the West is loaded as it is, every year now. So if he does that, I know they were the 3 seed last year, but like, again, different. It was completely different. So if Luca does that, I don't see why he also couldn't be a potential MVP, not even just candidate, but maybe winner. Again, it depends on how everybody else's season goes and how it plays out. But like, I feel like the conversation around Luca, if LeBron is not there and they don't bring in like another like co-star with him and stuff like that, depending on, what happens with LeBron. And the Lakers are a 3 seed and Luca's averaging 30, 10 and 6, whatever. And the Lakers are playing, they have like a top 10 offense, top 10 defense, that would be that would be ideal for them. I don't know. Luca could finally win that MVP that everyone has been wanting him to win. Again, I don't know if LeBron's going to be there or not. Obviously, that is going to factor into his, MVP conversation next year, because having LeBron next to you is going to make a difference on your potential MVP season. It just is. Like, we are talking about LeBron. Even at 40, like, it's still LeBron. So, like, that is obviously a huge factor there. But, like, again, it depends how the season plays out. But this is one year where, like, I don't doubt that Luca could win the MVP. I will say personally, in seasons prior, I didn't doubt that he was a top MVP candidate, obviously, because we know what he does on the court and how important he was to the Mavericks. And so I'm not saying that I didn't think he should have been in the MVP conversation before the season started any of those years. I personally didn't have him as a favorite. I don't think I had him as a favorite any of those years, like in my mind. But again, I don't remember what I was thinking all the time. But like, I just remember thinking, like, I don't think the Mavericks, even if Luca did his thing, like my thoughts and feelings on the Mavericks were like, because remember, that's a regular season award. I felt like with other MVP candidates out there and the teams that were constructed around them, I felt like the Mavericks weren't going to have enough regular season success, so to speak, wins, being top in the standings, in order for him to get that MVP, right? That was just kind of like my thought process on it. It was nothing to do with Luca individually. I just felt like the team's success, and there's not one person to blame on that, but I'm just saying, like, I feel like the team's success was never going to be enough in that time frame, with the roster that they had during those times, in order for him to win MVP over someone else who is like a, top 2 seed and stuff like that. Again, no disrespect. Like, I didn't say the Mavericks were bad, and I'm not saying Luca didn't deserve to be in conversation for MVP. I'm just saying, like, that was kind of how I thought it out. And if the Mavericks were a top 2 seed or whatever and Luca won MVP back then, I wouldn't have been like surprised. I wouldn't have been like shocked, and I would have been happy for Luca, but that's basically how I felt about it. So now, fast forward to now, it's kind of like, do people think that this Lakers roster is better than the Mavericks roster 2 years ago? And I don't know what the answer to that is. You guys can tell me in the comments down below. But if you don't think it's better than that roster, maybe we'll go 3 years ago before Kyrie got there, but I don't know if that's a fair comparison. But let's just do before Kyrie Irving got there. Is this Lakers roster, if we take LeBron off the roster, is this Lakers roster better than that Mavericks roster? Again, I don't know the answer because I'm not like sitting here thinking about the entire roster. But if you say no, and then he brings the Lakers, I guess about to say Mavericks, the Lakers to a top 3 seed, that kind of sounds like an MVP season to me. Because obviously, if they're the top 3 seed, he's going to be averaging 30, 12, whatever, like 30, 10, and 6 or whatever. Like he's going to be doing his thing, of course. So we'll see what happens, but that is my opinion on that. So I wanted to talk about the All-Star game a little bit because I have an idea, and I don't have it like fully, I don't have all the full details on my idea, but basically because I feel like it's really hard to determine what the actual solution should be. But obviously we know the All-Star game has been criticized for, the lack of defense and, that kind of stuff, like the competitiveness, lack of defense, and it just being kind of like basically people are saying they wish they would play as hard as they did during the summer, pickup games and stuff like that. So obviously no one's expecting them to play like they're in the NBA Finals. That's unrealistic and fair enough. I will say, and I don't know if this is true, I don't know what the facts are. I don't know that it's all the players, meaning like, I don't know why it started to like, it kind of seemed like it was a slow trickle down effect. You know what I mean? Like, it's kind of like the saying, you give an inch and someone takes a yard. So it's kind of like, and I'm not saying the players did this all intentionally or that's all the players' fault, but I'm just saying for scenario sake, it's kind of like someone did something that probably wasn't acceptable in the All-Star game 20 years ago, right? And they quote unquote got away with it, right? And so it's kind of like, oh, if I can get away with that, what else can I get away with? Like slowly like taking things and just like, then eventually it ends up being what we see now where we're like, okay, wait a minute. How did we get from there to here? But it's like, if you watch the slow progression, that's usually how it goes. So obviously partly it's on players because they are the ones out there playing, of course. But I will say, and again, I don't have any proof of whose fault it is, but I feel like the owners probably have something to do with this because remember, they're paying these players $50, $60 million. Like, and this is the part that I want to talk about. For the All-Star game, I don't know, and I don't know the answer. Do owners get any kind of profits or benefits from their player being in the All-Star game or from the All-Star game? Obviously, the team hosting it, has benefits. But what I'm saying is like when any NBA team has a game in their arena, they're obviously making money from ticket sales and jerseys and concessions and all that stuff. And again, I don't know the answer, but like, are any of the owners making money from the All-Star game in some kind of fashion like that? Again, I don't know the answer. I don't know what the answer because it's not black and white. You could say, yes, they're making money from their all-star player getting their jersey sold. Like, I get it, but I'm just saying, like, the same way there's, like, concrete ticket sales and all that kind of stuff for a home game at a team's arena. I'm asking because, again, I think it's partly on players, but I also think owners also don't want their players to get hurt. And I'm sure that there has also been a trickle-down effect of kind of like, hey, maybe, like, you should take it a little bit easier because, we have a game coming up next week and we got to make the playoffs and that's really important. Like, I feel like it's a combination of a whole bunch of different parties. And so why I'm bringing up the money thing, and I'm not saying that, they don't make enough money, by owning the team and stuff like that. But what I'm saying is like everybody always, or not always, but most of the time people want incentives. And so like, the incentive of having a home game is, we know what the incentives are. The money, the building new fans, experiences, all those things. So I'm saying like, if the owners quote unquote don't have a clear incentive, they may be more incentivized to kind of, again, like I'm trying to use my words carefully because again, I think it's a multifaceted issue with multiple parties involved, making decisions. I don't think it's just any one thing, but just kind of like, like maybe we should take it a little bit easier because we are the one paying him $60 million. And if he gets hurt in the All-Star game, there goes our season. There goes that $60 million and maybe next season, depending on what the injury is, okay? So that is one part of it. Again, part of it is the players, of course, because again, they are out there playing. Again, it's just a whole bunch of different things. So here's what I will say, and it kind of goes to the incentive thing that I just said. I don't know how again, the money thing with the owners, I don't know if they do make money or not off that, so ignore that for a second. But if we're just talking about from the player side, and this honestly would affect owners too, and organizations, which is why I say I feel like this could be kind of a solution. So if you see this ever happen in the NBA All-Star game, you heard it here first. I mean, maybe someone else came up with this idea somewhere. But I'm just doing this based off what came to my head. So I feel like in order to have people play harder and be more competitive in the All-Star game and play more defense is to have an end result that affects their season in some way, shape, or form. So I don't think, of course everyone likes more money, but I don't think the bonuses is really going to change it because yes, everyone would love more money, but I don't think that's going to change it. They could figure out other ways to make additional money off the court, right? So I don't think that would change it. They're trying the USA versus the world thing this year, which I'm not the biggest fan of. I want East versus West, and the only way that I feel like my idea would work is in East versus West anyway. I personally don't think world versus America. I hope it does. I hope it solves the issue, but I don't think that's going to solve the issue. I don't think us keeping on changing the format of how players are on a roster is a solution, because I didn't like when they changed from East versus West to the draft kind of thing. Like, it was fun the first year to watch, of course. Like, we're watching, like, a draft. But, like, I don't think that was a solution. And I don't, like, blame them for trying it. Like, again, it was fun the first year to watch the draft and stuff like that. But, like, whatever. So, anyway, so I say go back to East versus West, which is what a lot of people want. And then I've heard people say before, make whichever side wins get home court advantage in the NBA Finals. But the reason I feel like that doesn't work is because every team is not going to the NBA Finals. Only 2 teams make it to the NBA Finals. And 16 teams, 8 in the East, 8 in the West, make the playoffs. So even doing like home court advantage in the playoffs or something like that doesn't really work either because, again, they're playing against their own conference, so then that wouldn't make sense. And not everybody makes it. Because not everybody who's an all-star is going to necessarily be on a playoff team. So I feel like it has to be something where, similar to like they get home court advantage, it has to be an incentive like that affects their season and also affects ownership and the organization, season in a way, because that is the only way, in my opinion, to get it to change. Because, again, if ownership is like, we don't want our players to get hurt because we want to make the playoffs. Well, if something that is the result of the All-Star game hinders them from making the playoffs or something like that, if their side, the West or the East, loses, then I feel like it'll incentivize everybody to do differently, because nobody wants to have their ability to either make the playoffs or something that like gets in the way of like them doing what they want to do in the season. Like, there has to be something. And I don't know what the answer is, but that's basically, I don't have a concrete answer, but it's basically like something that like affects the 82 regular season games, where it's going to change the outcome in a way where it's, I guess, bad enough, if you want to say, where if you lose, you really don't want to lose because you don't want that, result. So that's what I think on that. So thank you guys so much for watching this live stream. I hope you enjoyed, and see you soon.